The story of life on Earth is a tale of immense, almost unimaginable spans of time, punctuated by moments of cataclysmic change. For a brief, brilliant, and violent period, that change was us. We were a geological force with a consciousness, an epic made flesh, sculpting the planet to our will. But the most profound signature of our reign was not what we built, but the sound we made. What happens to the world when the single loudest species in planetary history suddenly falls silent forever? First comes the quiet. It is a silence deeper than any human has ever known. The ceaseless hum of our civilization, a global chorus of engines, industry, and electronics, is a soundscape known as anthrophony. In a typical city, this baseline hum rarely drops below 40 decibels, a constant pressure on the ears of every living thing. In our absence, it vanishes. The drone of power lines fades within hours, the rumble of traffic within days. The silence is broken only by the planet's own voice, the geophony of wind and water, and the slow, tentative return of biophony, the sounds of life. The first agent of our world's disassembly is water, chemistry's universal solvent. It exploits every microscopic flaw in our designs. In temperate climates, its power is amplified by the brutal mechanics of the freeze-thaw cycle. Water seeps into the porous surfaces of concrete and asphalt, and as it freezes, it expands with a force of up to 30,000 pounds per square inch. Winter after winter, this relentless pressure pries our world apart from the inside out, a process called spalling, which flakes away the surfaces of our roads and buildings, exposing them to further assault. While water works mechanically, a more subtle chemical war is waged against our strongest creations. The steel rebar that forms the skeleton of our skyscrapers begins its inevitable reunion with oxygen. Rust, or iron oxide, has a greater volume than the steel it replaces, causing it to swell with unstoppable force, shattering the surrounding concrete. Meanwhile, the concrete itself, our most ubiquitous building material, sickens and dies. It undergoes carbonation as carbon dioxide from the atmosphere reacts with the calcium hydroxide in the cement, turning it into brittle calcium carbonate, essentially man-made limestone, losing its strength and returning to the earth from which it came. The timeline of this collapse is a testament to our hubris. Our proudest achievements are the first to fall. Suspension bridges, their colossal steel cables engineered to a fine tolerance, are the most vulnerable. Within 2 to 3 centuries, corrosion will sever these vital arteries, sending their roadways plunging into the rivers below. Skyscrapers will stand longer, perhaps 1,000 years, but they are not immortal. As their steel skeletons decay and their foundations are undermined by water and roots, they too will begin to fail, not in explosive demolitions, but in a slow, groaning cascade of floors, a piecemeal surrender to the patient, unforgiving pull of gravity. But as our world crumbles, a new one rises. The process of ecological succession begins with life's most tenacious pioneers. Lichens, a symbiotic partnership of fungus and algae, are the first colonists on the barren surfaces of concrete and glass. They are extremophiles, capable of surviving intense heat and cold. More importantly, they are agents of chemical weathering, secreting weak acids that ever so slowly etch the surfaces they cling to, liberating minerals and creating the first microscopic footholds for what comes next. Upon the thin, nutrient-poor substrate created by the lichens, the next wave arrives. Hardy grasses and weeds, the kind we spent billions of hours trying to eradicate from our lawns and gardens, now find their purpose. Their fibrous roots weave into the cracks, expanding them further. Their life and death cycles, year after year, build up a precious layer of organic matter, a true soil where once there was only sterile stone and asphalt. This accumulating soil becomes the seedbed for intermediate species, for resilient shrubs and fast-growing trees like birch and alder. Then comes the forest. It does not arrive all at once, but creeps in from the edges, carried by the wind and by animal emissaries. Squirrels, forgetting a cache of acorns buried at the base of a crumbling wall, plant the seeds of a future oak grove. A bird, digesting the fruit of a cherry tree, deposits a seed on the 40th floor of a derelict skyscraper, in a pocket of soil collected on a ledge. Within 500 years, a dense, young, chaotic forest stands where the canyons of Wall Street once stood, its canopy eclipsing the sky, its roots delving deep into the rubble of our civilization. Our ruins are not merely erased. They are repurposed. They become novel ecosystems, strange hybrid worlds of geology and biology. The vast, dark networks of our subway tunnels, now flooded with groundwater, transform into artificial cave systems. They become home to pale, sightless creatures, fish, crustaceans, and insects, that evolve in total darkness, a bizarre ecosystem fueled by the nutrients washing down from the city forest above. The sheer faces of our glass and steel towers become artificial cliffs, prime nesting real estate for peregrine falcons and other birds of prey, who find the high ledges and powerful updrafts to be ideal hunting grounds. Thus, the first act of the post-human world concludes not with an ending, but a transformation. The violence of our industry gives way to the slow, grinding work of planetary reclamation. Our tomb, a global necropolis of concrete and steel, becomes a nursery for a new and wilder form of life. We have left behind a strange and indelible inheritance, an altered stage upon which the next, extraordinary act of evolution is about to play out. The silence is the overture. The inheritors are waiting. As the physical signature of humanity decays, the biological signature begins a radical transformation. The first wave of inheritors are not strange new beasts emerging from the jungle's heart, nor are they long-lost species returning from the brink. They are the creatures who knew us best. They were our neighbors, our pests, our constant, scurrying shadows. These are the synanthropes, the species that didn't just survive in the Anthropocene but mastered it. They are perfectly positioned to capitalize on our absence, not by conquering our world, but by inheriting it. Their immediate success is governed by a powerful ecological principle: competitive release. For millennia, humanity acted as a global hypercompetitor, consuming resources, altering landscapes, and suppressing any species that interfered with our ambitions. Our sudden removal is like the breaking of a dam. The immense ecological pressure we exerted is released, and those species held in check are suddenly unshackled. Free from the constant threat of our cars, our poisons, and our general hostility, their populations don't just recover. They explode into the vast, empty niche we left behind. Consider the raccoon of North America, an animal seemingly designed for a post-human world. Its most famous trait, its high degree of neophilia or attraction to novel objects, was a liability in our world, leading it into conflict with our property. In our absence, this trait becomes a supreme advantage. The decaying world is an endless buffet of novel puzzles. Every rusted car, every sealed container, every crumbling building is a potential source of food or shelter, and the raccoon's innate curiosity is the key to unlocking it. Its dexterous, hand-like paws, evolved for foraging in streams, are pre-adapted for manipulating the debris of our civilization with startling efficiency. This intelligence is not passive. It is an active, problem-solving faculty. Studies in our era demonstrated raccoons could defeat complex locking mechanisms that stumped other animals. Now, that cognitive prowess is applied to a world of decaying infrastructure. They learn the weaknesses of our rusted hinges and brittle plastics. This is not just instinct. It is insight. They are the new engineers of the ruins, dismantling our legacy piece by piece for their own survival. Their territories expanding from city blocks to entire metropolitan areas that are now their undisputed domain. Yet, the raccoon's success is dwarfed by the rise of a global empire, that of the brown rat, Ratus norvegicus. Perhaps the most successful mammal on Earth besides ourselves, it followed us in our ships and planes to every continent except Antarctica. Now, it inherits a planetary kingdom of rubble, interconnected by the decaying arteries of our trade routes. The initial population boom is astronomical, but this is only the beginning of their story. The rats are about to become a spectacular showcase for one of evolution's most creative processes: adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation occurs when a single ancestral species rapidly diversifies to fill a multitude of empty ecological niches. With the world's ecosystems in disarray and countless roles left vacant, the highly adaptable, fast-breeding rat is the perfect candidate. Imagine, over thousands of years, different populations beginning to specialize. In the flooded coastal cities like a drowned New York or Shanghai, rats face the selective pressure of a semi-aquatic life. Individuals with slightly more webbing between their toes or oilier, more water-resistant fur are more successful. Over generations, this leads to the emergence of a new form, a sleek, otter-like rat, a proficient hunter of fish and crustaceans in the brackish waters of the urban archipelago. Elsewhere, the evolutionary pathways diverge just as dramatically. In the new urban forests, where food is found in the canopy, a line of arboreal rats could evolve. Longer tails for balance, sharper claws for climbing, and a lighter build would be favored, turning them into squirrel-like navigators of the high branches. In regions with harder soils and fewer trees, a different pressure could select for powerful forelimbs and thick skulls, creating a fossorial or burrowing form, a mole rat, carving out complex subterranean colonies beneath the rubble of our forgotten suburbs. Each of these is a potential new species, a twig on a rapidly branching evolutionary tree with a common rat as its trunk. This rapid adaptation is initially powered by phenotypic plasticity, the ability of an organism to change its characteristics in response to its environment without any change in its DNA. The first generations of rats in a new aquatic environment might grow slightly larger or develop different behaviors. This immediate flexibility allows them to survive. Subsequently, epigenetic changes, modifications that turn genes on or off, can pass these advantageous traits to the next generation. Finally, over longer timescales, the slow, relentless process of natural selection favors mutations that permanently hardwire these traits, cementing the creation of a new species. And then there are the thinkers, the information brokers of this new world. The corvids, crows, ravens, and jays were already renowned for an intelligence that rivaled that of primates. Their brains, particularly the region known as the nidopallium caudolateral, function like a primate's prefrontal cortex, enabling advanced problem-solving and planning. In a world without us, their intellect is unleashed. They are not just surviving. They are mapping, remembering, and communicating the state of a changing continent. Their success lies in social learning, the ability to create a form of culture. A raven that discovers a new technique for accessing a sealed food source, perhaps by dropping rocks onto the rusted roof of a warehouse until it breaks, does not keep this knowledge to itself. Others observe, imitate, and refine the technique. The knowledge spreads through the flock and is passed down to the next generation. They are creating a living, evolving blueprint of the post-human world, a culture of survival written not in books, but in behavior, passed down through the echoing calls that now define the soundscape of our silent cities. These heirs apparent, the raccoon, the rat, the raven, are the first chapter of the new story. They are the opportunists, the generalists, feasting on the massive, decaying buffet we left behind and beginning the great work of diversification. For now, they are expanding on their old roles, but the world continues to change. The niches we occupied, and the far greater number of niches we emptied by driving other species to extinction, are vast and beckoning. The era of the generalist is a necessary but ultimately temporary chapter. The pressures of this new world will soon begin to demand more. They will demand specialization, power, and the rise of a new apex. Every stable ecosystem on Earth is structured like a pyramid, and at its very peak sits the apex predator. This is not merely the strongest or most fearsome animal. It is the keystone, the regulator, the gravitational center around which the entire community of life orbits. By controlling the populations of the large herbivores, the apex predator initiates a cascade of effects that ripple down through every level of the food web, a phenomenon known as a top-down trophic cascade. For the last 10,000 years, that role was held unnaturally and globally by us. With our disappearance, the largest power vacuum in 65 million years opens up. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the evolutionary race to claim the title of Earth's new apex predator begins. The initial consequence of our absence is chaos. Freed from the pressures of our hunting and our agriculture, the world's herbivores, the deer, wild boar, and most significantly our billions of feral domestic animals, experience a population boom of staggering proportions. Vast, unchecked herds of cattle, sheep, goats, and horses spread across the continents. Without a predator to control their numbers, they threaten to overgraze the recovering landscapes, potentially locking ecosystems in a permanently degraded state. The world doesn't just need a predator, it needs a manager. But who can fill this role? The obvious candidates, the great predators of our time, are ghosts in this future world. The lions of Africa, the tigers of Asia, the jaguars of the Americas, their populations were already decimated by our civilization, confined to small, fragmented pockets of wilderness. They are specialists, exquisitely adapted to their native habitats. They lack the numbers, the genetic diversity, and the adaptability to expand and claim a global throne. The new ruler must come from a more ubiquitous, more opportunistic stock. It will arise from our own shadow, a creature of our own making, Canis lupus familiaris, the domestic dog. In the first few centuries of the post-human era, the estimated billion dogs we left behind undergo a rapid and brutal process of de-domestication. The vast majority, bred for companionship or specialized tasks, perish. The survivors are the mutts, the hardy generalists. The artificial traits we so carefully cultivated are now liabilities. The pedomorphic features we found endearing, the floppy ears, shortened snouts, and trusting temperaments, are swiftly erased by natural selection. What emerges is a creature that has reverted to a more ancestral, wolf-like blueprint. A mid-sized, prick-eared, long-muzzled canid. A creature akin to an Australian dingo. These feral dogs initially thrive as scavengers and hunters of small game, but the true evolutionary prize is the walking banquet of megaherbivores. A single feral cow is a caloric jackpot, enough to sustain a pack for weeks. This creates an immense and directional selective pressure. Packs that, through chance and cooperation, manage to take down a juvenile horse or an ailing cow are the ones that flourish. Their pups, well-fed and strong, survive to adulthood, carrying the genes and, crucially, the learned behaviors of their successful parents. Over thousands of years, this pressure for cooperative hunting becomes the primary engine of their evolution. The hunt for large, dangerous prey favors not just strength, but intelligence and communication. The simple barks and yips of their domestic ancestors evolve into a more complex and nuanced repertoire of calls and signals, allowing them to coordinate intricate strategies. They become masters of the pursuit hunt, possessing incredible stamina that allows them to harass and exhaust prey over vast distances. The pack becomes a single, distributed intelligence, a superorganism dedicated to the hunt. This behavioral evolution drives physical evolution. Generations of hunting prey that can weigh over a ton selects for increased size, denser bone structure, and more powerful jaws. Their morphology begins to converge with that of the great extinct predators of the Pleistocene, like the dire wolf. Let us call this future creature Canis haeres, the inheritor dog. It is larger than a gray wolf, with broader shoulders and a bite force capable of crushing bone. A necessary adaptation for consuming every last calorie from a hard-won kill. Imagine the scene. A herd of massive, auroch-like cattle, descended from domestic dairy cows but now wild and armed with formidable horns, moves through the skeletal ruins of a highway interchange. They are stalked by a pack of Canis haeres. The hunt is a masterpiece of strategy. The lead hunters push the herd, while flankers use the crumbling concrete barriers to funnel the animals. A smaller group waits in ambush behind an overturned tanker truck. They are not merely using the landscape. They are reading it, weaponizing the ghost of our civilization against their prey. This dynamic is not one-sided. It is a coevolutionary arms race. As the canid predators become more effective, the feral herbivores evolve in response. The cattle grow larger, their horns become more formidable, and their herding instincts more sophisticated. The feral horses become faster, their senses sharper. This escalating battle between hunter and hunted drives evolution for both sides, forging ever more powerful and intelligent creatures. It is the ancient dance of life and death, playing out on a new and unfamiliar stage. Finally, after tens of thousands of years, a new equilibrium is reached. Canis haeres has firmly established itself as the planet's new apex predator. Its presence has stabilized the herbivore populations, preventing them from devastating the landscape. The overgrazed plains have recovered, and the forests have matured. The trophic cascade we initiated with our disappearance has been resolved. The ecological pyramid, once shattered, now has its capstone once more. A new, wild stability descends, governed not by human design, but by the ancient, brutal, and beautiful logic of the hunt. Power on Earth is not solely measured in tooth and claw. The history of life has shown, time and again, that the most revolutionary force is a mind that can bend the world to its will. Intelligence, the ability to plan, to innovate, to communicate complex ideas, and to see beyond the immediate present, is the ultimate ecological niche. For a brief moment we occupied it, and in doing so reshaped the planet. With our departure, the niche of the planetary thinker is once again vacant. A new mind is stirring, and its cradle will be the world we left behind. The most promising candidates are not found among the new mammalian predators, but in the sky. Avian brains, long dismissed as primitive, are now understood to be marvels of convergent evolution. In corvids and parrots, a brain region called the nidopallium caudolateral has evolved to perform functions remarkably similar to our own neocortex, the seat of higher reasoning. They possess the neural hardware for genius. Now, in a post-human world, they have the opportunity. Consider the raven, a creature of myth and intellect. In our time, their intelligence was a curiosity. Now it is a dynasty in the making. Their minds are wired for causal reasoning, the ability to understand cause and effect. A raven doesn't just see a rock fall. It can learn to use the falling rock to trigger a mechanism that releases food. Our ruins become an immense intellectual playground for them. An endless series of puzzles. The decaying machinery, the complex rubble, the strange and durable artifacts we left behind. All become tools and challenges that select for the cleverest and most inquisitive minds. Their social structure is the furnace where this intelligence is forged. Ravens live in complex societies, and the social brain hypothesis posits that this is the primary driver for advanced cognition. Navigating a world of alliances, rivals, friendships, and betrayals requires immense mental capacity. It requires a theory of mind, the ability to infer what another individual is thinking or feeling. A raven that can deceive a rival to protect a food cache is more likely to survive and pass on its genes for cunning. Over millennia, this social chess match drives a cognitive arms race within the species itself. Parallel to the corvids, the parrots, or pseudoscience embark on their own journey. Their most profound gift is vocal learning, an ability shared only by a few animal groups, including humans. While their mimicry amused us, its true potential lies in the development of a complex, symbolic language. In a world without us, their calls could evolve from simple warnings and contact calls into a proto-language with a rudimentary syntax. Different sounds could be combined to communicate novel ideas. Not just danger, but danger from above, near the red, crumbling structure. This journey is guided by the Baldwin effect, a subtle evolutionary mechanism where learning illuminates the path for genetics. Imagine a flock of Kia, the notoriously intelligent New Zealand parrots, learning to use sharp shards of our glass to cut through tough plant fibers. This is a learned behavior, a cultural innovation. But individuals with beaks slightly better shaped for holding glass, or with minds that can grasp the concept of sharpness more quickly, will be more successful. Over generations, natural selection will favor these genetic predispositions, and what began as a learned trick can become an innate talent, hardwiring the foundations of tool use into the species. But perhaps the most profound intelligence will not come from the sky, but from the sea. Here, in the form of the octopus and its cephalopod kin, is an intelligence so alien it might as well be from another world. With a large, complex brain and a nervous system distributed through its arms, the octopus is a decentralized mind in a fluid body. It is a master of camouflage, problem-solving, and escape, but it has always been held back by two critical limitations: a short, solitary life. Our ruins could be the key to overcoming these hurdles. The sunken skeletons of our coastal cities create a concentrated, three-dimensional habitat of unparalleled complexity, filled with shelters, ambush points, and novel resources. This could force octopuses into closer, more frequent contact, creating a selective pressure for social tolerance. If a new, persistent predator arises in these reef-like ruins, a solitary octopus is vulnerable. But a small, cooperative group, sharing a defensible lair within a submerged building, would be far more likely to survive. Sociality could be born from necessity. Once social bonds begin to form, the short lifespan becomes a major disadvantage, as it limits the transmission of knowledge. This would create a powerful selective pressure for longevity. An octopus that lives for 5 years instead of 2 has more time to learn, and more importantly, more time to teach its offspring. Their skin, covered in millions of color-changing chromatophores, already functions as a form of communication for camouflage and mating displays. In a social context, this could evolve into a true visual language of breathtaking complexity, capable of conveying abstract thought through shifting patterns and colors. This is the crucial leap, from instinct to foresight, from reaction to intention. The true spark of higher intelligence is the technological ratchet. A chimpanzee may use a stone to crack a nut, but it discards the stone afterward. The ratchet clicks forward when an individual not only uses a tool but keeps it, modifies it for better performance, and stores it for future use. For a future raven, this might be selecting a specific metal hook, sharpening it against a piece of concrete, and hiding it to be used the next day. This is the beginning of technology. The next great intelligence on Earth will not look or think like us. It may be the communal, chattering mind of a flock of birds, a distributed consciousness rippling across the skin of a cephalopod colony, or something else entirely. But the evolutionary pressures are in place. The candidates are auditioning, and the stage is littered with the props and puzzles we left behind. In the great silence of our passing, a new mind is not just stirring, it is being forged. Let us now take a great leap forward, unmooring ourselves from the centuries and millennia to travel into the abyss of deep time. We journey 5, 10, perhaps 20 million years into the post-human future. On these immense timescales, evolution is not just a tinkerer, it is a grand artist. The world of the early inheritors has passed, and in its place is a biosphere reshaped, a planet teeming with life forms both bizarre and strangely familiar. This is the ultimate consequence of our absence. A second genesis on a world we no longer recognize. The most immediate and striking feature of this future Earth is the triumphant return of megafauna. The extinction event we triggered, which wiped out most of the planet's large animals, created an ecological void. In our absence, life rushes to fill it, governed by a principle known as Cope's rule, the observed evolutionary tendency for lineages to increase in body size over geological time. For millions of years, being big is once again a winning strategy. Freed from the pressures of human hunting and habitat loss, multiple animal groups begin an arms race toward gigantism. The plains of North America, once home to our vast monoculture farms, are now a sweeping savanna of tall, hardy grasses that have outcompete our wheat and corn. Thundering across these plains are vast herds of gigapigs or swinodonts. Descended from the common feral pig, these creatures have evolved into rhinoceros-sized omnivores. Their heads are massive, armed with formidable, self-sharpening tusks used for defense, uprooting tough vegetation, and battling rivals. They are the new architects of the landscape, their rooting behavior creating disturbances that allow pioneer plant species to thrive, much like elephants do today. This world is a masterclass in convergent evolution, life's tendency to independently arrive at the same solutions to similar problems. On the isolated continent of South America, which in the distant past was home to fearsome, flightless terror birds called forest wrasses, history repeats itself. The niche for a large, terrestrial predator is filled not by a mammal, but by a bird. Descendants of the intelligent and aggressive caracara parrot have become flightless, their wings reduced to small, balancing appendages, their legs becoming long and powerful. Standing over 2 meters tall, with a massive, hooked beak designed to crush bone, this new terror bird is a near-perfect echo of its ancient predecessor. The same pattern unfolds across the globe. In Australia, a continent of marsupials, the role of a large predator might be taken by a carnivorous kangaroo. Imagine a descendant of the gray kangaroo, its body plan adapted for ambush rather than speed. Its legs are shorter and more robust, its forelimbs powerful and armed with enormous claws, and its famous kick now used to disembowel prey. It would be a creature that moves with a slow, stalking gait, a marsupial bear converging on a niche once held by placental predators. Evolution's creativity is not limited to vertebrates. In a world free of our industrial-scale pesticides, insects are unleashed. The sheer biomass of insect life explodes, providing a rich food source and driving new evolutionary pathways. In the warm, humid forests of the Amazon basin, social insects like army ants could evolve into true superorganisms, their colonies spanning square kilometers, acting as a single, distributed intelligence that consumes everything in its path. They become a geological force, their movements shaping the forest floor and dictating the migratory patterns of larger animals. In the oceans, the changes are just as profound. In the absence of industrial fishing and noise pollution, the marine world recovers its former abundance. The role of the great filter-feeding whales, should their populations falter, could be usurped by a surprising candidate. Descendants of large pinnipeds, like the elephant seal, could adapt to a fully aquatic existence. Over millions of years, their mouths could develop vast, bristle-like structures derived from modified teeth or gums, allowing them to strain krill and plankton from the water. They would become the new baleen whales. Their sleek, blubbery forms a testament to convergence in the deep. This future is not simply a rerun of the past. It produces truly novel forms. In the sprawling, swampy deltas where our greatest cities once stood, the high concentrations of plastics and heavy metals have created unique chemical pressures. Here, a lineage of gastropods snails might evolve the ability to sequester these metals into their shells, creating iridescent, incredibly durable structures. These metallosnails could grow to enormous sizes, their shimmering, rainbow-hued shells becoming a common feature of the new wetlands, a living monument to our pollution. The biosphere of the deep future is a complex tapestry woven from the threads of our legacy and the boundless potential of life itself. It is a world of hoofed rodents, arboreal crustaceans, and predatory birds that hunt giant, land-walking squid in the misty coastal forests. The very air and soil are different, managed by new symbioses between plants and fungi that have evolved to process the strange geology we left behind. This is not a lesser world, a shadow of the one that came before us. This is the ultimate triumph of life. Its sheer, stubborn, and spectacular creativity. It takes the rubble of a fallen civilization and the scattered survivors of a global extinction event, and given the one resource it truly needs, time, it builds something new. It builds something astonishing. It is a vibrant, dynamic, and utterly unique testament to the resilience of evolution, a second, stranger Eden, grown from the soil of our forgotten memory. Even after 20 million years of evolution, after new mountains have risen and eroded, after new ice ages have scoured the continents, the shadow of humanity will remain. It will not be a memory or a story, for there will be no one left to tell it. Our legacy will be something far more durable, evidence. To a future intelligence, a geologist from a species yet unimagined, we will not be a civilization to be studied, but a mystery to be unearthed, a thin, anomalous layer in the rock that speaks of a time when the planet itself went mad. Imagine this future scientist, perhaps a descendant of the hyper-intelligent corvids, drilling a core sample from the bed of a dried ocean basin. For thousands of meters, the layers tell a familiar story of sediment and time. Then, they hit it. A strange, dark line, only a few centimeters thick, but globally consistent. This is the Anthropocene stratum, our tombstone. It is a boundary line in Earth's history as clear and as violent as the iridium layer that marks the death of the dinosaurs. Within this layer, the evidence is baffling. It is filled with technofossils, the fossilized remnants of our technology. There are strange, amorphous rocks known as plastiglomerates, where our plastic waste, melted and fused with natural sand and stone, has become a permanent part of the geological record. The very fabric of the rock is shot through with a fine dust of microplastics, a global signature of our throwaway culture. It is a layer poisoned with unnatural concentrations of lead, mercury, and persistent organic pollutants that will remain toxic for eons. The geology itself is wrong. The future scientist would find unnatural concentrations of refined metals like aluminum and titanium, elements that do not exist in such pure forms in nature. They would find the fossilized skeletons of our cities, the crushed remnants of concrete laced with the ghostly outlines of oxidized steel rebar. These urban strata would be a profound geological puzzle, vast deposits of stone that did not form through any known volcanic or sedimentary process, pointing to a creature that built artificial mountains and then abandoned them. The most definitive proof, the golden spike that will forever date our reign, is radioactive. The mid-20th century nuclear bomb tests blasted a cocktail of artificial isotopes like plutonium-239 into the stratosphere, which then settled as a worldwide film of dust. With a half-life of 24,100 years, this isotope provides an unerringly precise start date for our peak influence. It is an unambiguous, globally synchronized timestamp that screams of a species that unlocked the power of the atom and, for a moment, wielded it against itself and its world. But perhaps the most perplexing evidence is paleontological. The fossil record within the Anthropocene layer is an ecological nightmare. While the layers below show a rich diversity of life, our layer is defined by a shocking lack of it, dominated by the bones of a mere handful of species. This is the Lagerstätte of the farm. The future paleontologist would be confronted with the fossilized remains of billions upon billions of cows, pigs, and sheep, their forms strangely uniform and their distribution global, defying all principles of natural biogeography. And then there is the chicken. The sheer number of fossilized chicken bones in this layer will be statistically staggering, outnumbering the bones of every wild bird that has ever lived. They will call it the avian monoculture event. They will theorize endlessly about the chicken planet. What cataclysm or bizarre evolutionary advantage could lead to a single species of bird so utterly dominating the entire planet's vertebrate biomass for a brief, feverish moment? The truth that they were a food source for another species would be almost too monstrous and inefficient to be believable. Our shadow is also alive, written in the DNA and distribution of the very creatures that inherited the Earth. The future biologist will map the genomes of the world's fauna and find our fingerprints everywhere. The descendants of European rabbits in Australia, of brown rats on remote Pacific islands, of North American gray squirrels in England, this scrambled biogeography is a living ghost of our global transport system. We moved life around the planet like pieces on a chessboard, and the game will continue with our arrangement long after we have gone. Even the planet's biochemistry will bear our mark. One of our most stubborn legacies is the plastosphere, the ecosystem of microbes that evolved to live on our plastic waste. In the millions of years since our departure, this ecosystem has become a fundamental part of the planet's carbon cycle. New lineages of bacteria and fungi have evolved novel enzymes to break down the complex polymers of our plastics, turning our trash into their treasure. They are a new kingdom of life, a final, ironic twist where the biosphere evolves to consume its most unnatural poison. So what would our future scientists conclude about us? They would see a species of paradoxical genius, a creature that could sequence its own genome but could not prevent the destruction of the ecosystems that sustained it, a species that could reach for the stars but choked its own oceans with waste. They would not see us as wise rulers or careful stewards. They would see us as a geological event, a brief, brilliant, and self-terminating planetary fever. The story of the inheritors, then, ends where it began, with our legacy. We were not the end of the story. We were a punctuation mark, a sudden, violent interruption in the long, flowing sentence of life on Earth. But after the interruption, the sentence continues. The story is picked up by new authors, written in a new language, on a world forever shaped by our memory. Our shadow is long and dark, but life, in its infinite, resilient, and creative brilliance, is longer.